All right, fellow fact checkers. Now, before we start the show, I want to remind you to head over and check out our great sponsor, Fox and Son Coffee. They've got an amazing deal with all kinds of blends going on. So head over there and check it out. You can get the Mexican honey prep, the Brazilian honey prep, the Guatemalan, the Ethiopian. They'll be adding new roasts regularly. So be sure to check in and see what new flavors Steve has got over at Fox and Sons Coffee. They've also got all of your usual favorites, the Den Blend Dark, the Den Blend Light, and the one that we personally like around the house since we can't seem to agree on which of the light or the dark is better for both me and the wife, the Den Blend 2 Electric Boogaloo, which is the medium roast. So be sure to use the checkout code FCT for Fact Check This at checkout, and that'll get you an 18% discount on any order of $25 or more. Also, any order of $37.99 or more get you free shipping. Load up on all the greatest coffee on the market, and you can thank me later. Well, let's start the show.
This episode will be completely taken out of context. Welcome to the Fact Check This podcast.
All right, Fact Check This. And today I've got a couple shorter articles. I considered doing something different for today because I wasn't really sure that I wanted to talk about this. But I think the other one I'm going to do is a daily, either today on Thursday or it'll come out tomorrow on Friday. I was going to talk about Elon Musk and his involvement in European politics, specifically in Germany. But there's more that I want to look into first before I really sit down and talk about that. So I think I'm going to, I decided to just go ahead and go with the original plan, which is to talk about the Trump mandate, the landslide victory. And maybe more importantly, the reaction to that by the left, who still are seeming to not have grasped the moment that we're in, not have understood just what happened. For some reason, a lot of leftist journalists don't seem to have made or been able to grasp the reality of what this election was. And so with that, you get articles like the two that we're going to look at today. Both of these are from The Nation. I absolutely love to read The Atlantic, Mother Jones, Salon, The Nation. I like this stuff because it shows you how fucking insane the left are and how divorced from reality they are. So I highly recommend, like, if you want a good laugh, read stuff from all of those regularly and learn to enjoy life a little bit because it's fun. It's funny. It's like you see how out of touch they are, and then you understand why they did so poorly in this last election and why there are a lot of people within their party who are like, yeah, this is bad. We might need to reevaluate some things. The guy with, like, the stroke victim with brain damage, John Fetterman of all people, has said, yeah, like, we might want to reevaluate some of this stuff. We might want to reconsider the way we're doing things. John Fetterman has become like one of my favorite politicians to just follow and pay attention to. I always thought he would be, but I expected him to be my favorite for other reasons, not because he's actually like reasonable and sensible and does things that piss the left off. I thought he was just going to be like, a babbling moron that couldn't put two words together. But instead, he's ended up being phenomenal. Crazy. So nonetheless, let's jump into these. We'll start with the landslide one. Trump did not win in a landslide, nor did he secure a mandate. The election math isn't as bad as we thought, but the coming Trump administration is shaping up to be worse. I only hope it is. I hope the incoming Trump administration is everything that the left is scared it's going to be, and then some. I hope it's all of that and more. I hope it's the worst thing that's ever happened to the left, ever. It would be hard to be worse than Kamala Harris in this election, but I hope it'll be the worst thing ever. As blue Western states and cities finished counting votes. All right, so the funny thing about this is this was from November 12th when they're saying as blue Western states and cities finished counting votes. They didn't finish counting votes until like, I don't know, Sunday. I think the incoming members of Senate were sworn in on Monday, and Kamala Harris certified the election and everything. Like, they were still counting votes in California up until like, they're probably still counting votes. It's just not being tabulated. Like, they're going to keep counting votes until Kamala Harris wins. That's their, I think that's their goal. As blue Western states and cities finished counting votes, it looks like the popular vote landslide projected for Donald Trump last week turned out to be a trickle. He won by something to the tune of 3 million votes. When all the votes are counted, he will end up with a margin of roughly 2 points over Vice President Kamala Harris. Presidents Lyndon Johnson in 1964 and Richard Nixon in 1972 won more than 60% of the popular vote. Ronald Reagan in 1984 won 58%. Those were landslides. Those actually also happened in a much different political climate than what we live in today. And I personally don't believe anything better than probably what we saw this year. Like, if one candidate gets close to 50%, that's probably going to be about as good as it gets with all of the third parties. You're going to have probably a 5 to 10% margin of error. You're going to have the winner gets in the high 40s, the loser is going to get in the mid 40s, and everything else is going to be split up, and that's fine. I mean, that's also a reason that we don't need ranked choice type of stuff, because that, like, then that just muddies the water more. If you have to go through multiple rounds of the voting with the ranked choice stuff, like, that's no bueno. As long as we have as many, third parties as we do, then nobody's going to hit 50% ever again, in my opinion. The fact that, and they talk about this in the next article, and I'll get there, but like the fact that Trump got where he did, like 49.9, I can't remember what it's 49.9 something, like within a fraction of 50%. That's impressive in modern politics, in my opinion. Don't get me wrong, it was a bad outcome for Democrats. Trump won all 7 swing states, netting himself 312 electoral college votes to Biden's 306 in 2020. Democrats lost control of the Senate. The GOP now has 52 seats and will likely wind up with 53 when the race between incumbent Pennsylvania Democrat Bob Casey and Connecticut corporate titan Dave McCormick is finally called. Provisional ballots are still being counted at that time. McCormick ended up winning. It will probably hold the House by a slim margin. They did. So yes, none of this is good news, but it's not the top to bottom repudiation of Democrats as it first looked like. And the way to respond is not to launch a civil war within the Democratic Party. Unfortunately, that has already begun. Centrists blame the doctrine of woke with particular ire for trans Americans. We see you, New York Representative Tom Suozzi. Leftists say Democrats abandoned the working class. We hear you once again, Senator Bernie Sanders. Both positions are wrong. Both positions are not even close to wrong. Both positions are objectively correct when you look at polling and what people were saying about it. But you have people like the fucking writers at The Nation. They're like, woke wasn't a problem, and Democrats haven't abandoned the working class. This is the Chuck Schumer, like, if they just knew how much we did for them, we did so much for them, and they just don't understand how much we did for them. That's why they don't like us anymore. It's like, yeah, they did so much for you, or you did so much for them that they realize, oh shit, all of this so much is actually not a fucking thing. Both positions are wrong. Others point fingers at the Harris campaign, also right to point fingers at. Meanwhile, much of the media hypes Trump's win as a landslide, which would seem to validate his racist anti-worker agenda. Racist anti-worker agenda. It's amazing. This racist anti-worker agenda netted him huge gains in every ethnic background. The black vote, the Hispanic vote, the Asian vote, all swung in Trump's direction. Even the Muslim vote swung in Trump's direction. Blue collar types, blue collar voters swung hard in Trump's direction. Yeah, his racist anti-worker agenda is exactly why he picked up gains in literally every demographic. I'd argue that the single biggest problem with the Harris campaign was that it inherited a dysfunctional Biden campaign with only 107 days to go. And even given that, there was much her campaign did right. Her ground game actually made a difference. Trump won by an average of 3 points in the 7 battleground states and 7 points in states where there really was no active campaign. The same dynamic led to his narrowing Harris's margins in Democratic strongholds. Good job, Democratic parties of New York, California, and New Jersey. It wasn't enough of a difference, but it was a difference. I don't know why she apparently underperformed Biden in Detroit and Philadelphia, but it wasn't for lack of effort. She visited both cities many times, spending the Sunday before the election in a black Philadelphia church, a black barbershop, and a Puerto Rican restaurant. Unlike Hillary Clinton, she did not ignore Wisconsin. She and Walz campaigned there regularly, which might be why she came closest to winning Wisconsin than any of the other swing states. Might also have something to do with... never mind, we're not going to talk about that. For anybody who was paying attention to some of the stuff that was going on, Wisconsin was one of those states that looked like it might have been under fortification. But and if you look at those, you remember those lines in 2020, and you had that one, the line goes up, and then all of a sudden it goes way up, and then it continues back with Wisconsin had one of those, but the Trump line was all the way up here, and so it comes up and doesn't even get close. It just continues below. Like, I don't know. Strange things be happening sometimes. Harris also turned out to be a strong campaigner, unlike her unsuccessful 2020 presidential run. I'm gonna need y'all to show your work and give some examples, because I'm not sure what qualifies as strong campaigner. Okay, so I don't know why she underperformed in Detroit and Philadelphia. Might have been because everything she did in Detroit and Philadelphia came off as disingenuous, especially with black voters and especially with college age voters. She just seemed disingenuous across the board every time she did one of these events or something. The excitement generated by the switch from Biden to his vice president was real. It was not. It was 100% manufactured. There was nobody liked Kamala Harris until they announced that she was going to be the candidate, and then everybody had to pretend that they liked Kamala Harris. But Biden's creaky Wilmington-based campaign couldn't channel it. And for reasons good and bad, Harris was reluctant to shake it up. Although the big media has thoroughly examined the internal campaign trouble, I thought this piece by Jasmine Wright of Notice was most revealing. The campaign she inherited wasn't equipped to make use of either the volunteers or the money Harris Walz brought in at the start of her campaign. Okay. If they weren't ready to make use of the money, how did they end up $2 million in the hole? They spent over $1 billion, came up $2 million short, couldn't pay their volunteers. But what do you mean they weren't equipped? If they weren't equipped to make use of the money, then where did all the money go? Yeah, don't don't think too hard when looking at when asking the question, where did the money go where Democrat politicians are concerned. Of course, Harris made her own mistakes. She brought in former Barack Obama staffers and layered them into the existing dysfunctional leadership structure. Some of her own vice presidential staff got sidelined, as Wright reports. Perhaps relatedly, she eased up on some of her populist rhetoric, relying on brother-in-law Tony West of Uber to vet policy and billionaire businessman Mark Cuban as a major surrogate. She didn't promise to keep antitrust crusader Federal Trade Commissioner Chair Lena Khan in place, and we all know that Cuban and other corporate supporters were gunning for her. She made headlines when she said she would reduce Biden's promised capital gains tax hike from 35% to 28%. But how many working class people even noticed those moves? Right. Kamala Harris didn't actually do or say anything that resonated with the working class. That's why she lost the blue collar working class vote. Also, Sanders' insistence that Harris' campaign was disastrous and that a Democratic Party which has abandoned working class people would find that the working class has abandoned them ignores how much she centered workers in her campaign. And how? Where? When? Like, every major union declined to support her. Like, where's this, centering on the working class? Let alone how much Biden did for them during his administration. She regularly campaigned at union halls and alongside union leaders, and there's no denying the difference her proposed $6,000 infant tax credit and her $25,000 for first-time home buyers and her plan to extend Medicare to cover in-home care would have made for working people, except that the working people were also hearing the exact same thing from the Trump administration and had been for months prior to Kamala Harris coming on and then suddenly saying, oh yeah, when Trump said, like, it's Control C, Control V, what Kamala Harris is saying on the campaign trail versus what Donald Trump had been saying on the campaign trail for months. Like, when he said he was going to give her a MAGA hat, it's because she was espousing MAGA rhetoric for her campaign. Like, I don't know how else you'd look at that. But I do know about those proposals only because I covered. But do I know about those proposals only because I covered her campaign? Maybe her campaign didn't lean into the messaging enough. Maybe instead of making a closing argument at the ellipse focused on January 6th and Trump's existential threat to democracy, she should have packed an SEIU union hall and hammered home her opportunity agenda. Maybe, except that her opportunity agenda sounded like hollow bullshit basically at every turn. And yes, I personally have said that focusing on January 6th, Trump's existential threat to democracy, Trump being a felon, all of, like, focusing your entire campaign on what a horrible person Trump is, nobody fucking cares. Nobody cared when they voted for him in 2016. Everybody knew who he was then. Nobody cared when they voted for him in 2020. Everybody knew who he was then. Nobody fucking cares. Trying to hammer Trump's a bad guy was never going to work. But the problem was she didn't have anything else to run on because every time she talked about her opportunity agenda and all of this other stuff, it just came up hollow. She didn't have actual answers for any of the real questions that she got asked about any of that stuff. That's where that failed. It wasn't that that you're the only reason that you knew about her $6,000 tax credit, $2,500 for first-time home buyers, blah 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 blah, all this bullshit. The reason you knew about it isn't because you were covering her campaign, or the reason that nobody else cared about it. Everybody knew about it. Everybody knew about all of that stuff. Nobody cared because she could never answer a real question when she got poked and prodded and questioned on this stuff. Still, I can't help feeling like some of the complaints about Harris abandoning the working class as ever focused on the concerns and votes of white male working class. While exit polls are not to be entirely relied upon, the finding that in the 10 states NBC polled this year, Trump won Latino men 55-43 must be noted. Advocates for the female working class, especially women of color, saw that President Harris would do for those workers. As domestic workers advocate, Ai Jinpu, a strong Harris surrogate, wrote in Time magazine the week before the election, the Harris agenda invests in caregivers, unpaid and paid, by aiming to cap the cost of child care at 7% of income. Establish paid family and medical leave, expand access to care at home, and raise wages for care workers. These are the kinds of investments that would help families participate and stay in the workforce and realize the promise of opportunity in America. Finally, that class critique ignores Harris's promising to carry on Biden's pro-labor policies, many of which were influenced by or borrowed from Sanders himself. As writer Michael Cohen notes, under the Biden-Harris administration, the working class saw a higher increase in their pay than any other group of Americans, so much so that it undid 1/3 of the growth in wage inequality since 1980. Why didn't working class voters respond to this? That's the deeper issue we have to resolve. Working class voters didn't respond to this because, number one, a lot of those numbers are effectively bullshit. Number two, inflation completely wiped out all of that. Okay, let's say that the pay increase was accurate, that it actually did happen. So we went from here to here, except that inflation went from here to here. Wipes out all of that. It doesn't matter how pro working class you are in that wages increased during that time. If everything else you did policy wise caused everything else in the country to get exponentially more expensive and to fuck everybody on the other end. Anyway, it's time to stop the finger pointing, me included. Let's wait for more data before trying to understand the demographic shifts. Even the best exit polls are notoriously wrong. In this case, they have not been. Stop capitulating to a media narrative that Trump won a landslide. He did. You can say he didn't, but he did. When he swung every single voting demographic in the fucking country, except for white women over the age of 65. Literally every single voting demographic in the country, other than white women over the age of 65, moved more to the right. Trump and Republicans gained in every single demographic. Every single state, except for Utah, I think. Literally every single state moved more red, voted more Republican. California, New Jersey, New York State, they all saw big moves to the right. That's a landslide. That is a mandate, whether you think it was or not. Start strategizing over ways to block his agenda, particularly his promise of mass deportations. But see, this is why you're losing the working class. Why are they so anti-deportations? Why are they so pro-immigrant instead of being pro-American worker? With his rapid-fire selection of the creepy Tom Homan, that creepy architect of family separation in Trump's first term as border czar. He's not the architect of family separation. He literally said, we can deport the entire family together. There's no reason to separate them. That sounds like, keep the family together, not family separation. White nationalist Stephen Miller as deputy chief of staff for policy, and incompetent dog-murdering Kristi Noem as Homeland Security director. Trump's earliest personnel moves indicate that wasn't just rhetoric. The blame game doesn't protect the vulnerable. Let's move on to what will. I like Fetterman's reply to moving on and what to do on Fox News when he said he's going to vote for a lot of Trump's nominees for his cabinet positions, and he thinks that maybe we need to Democrats, the we being we here, need to be working with the Republicans on some of this stuff. And then, so the other article, I'll breeze through this one a little more quickly because I already talked about a lot of it. But Donald Trump has not won a majority of the votes cast for president. Donald Trump's popular vote total has fallen below 50%, and his margin over Kamala Harris has narrowed considerably as all the votes are counted. Okay, so as the votes in California continued to be counted, That's it. Like that's what, as all the votes continue to be counted, meant at the time of this writing, as California continues to be counted. And even after they continued to count all of these votes in California, Trump still picked up massive ground in the state of California. Republicans still gained massive ground in the state of California. So, like, I don't know. America has given an unprecedented and powerful mandate, Donald Trump declared in the early morning hours of November 6, 2024, after all the polls had closed. Indeed, he claimed that he had won a political victory in the country has never seen before, nothing like this. Trump was excited by the numbers, showing him with well over 50% of the popular vote and establishing a wide lead over his Democratic rival, Vice President Kamala Harris. Unfortunately for the president-elect, the United States takes time to count 155 million votes, or give or take a million, and the actual result will rob Trump of his bragging points. Trump can no longer claim that powerful mandate. By most reasonable measures, the beginning point for such claim in a system with two major parties is an overwhelming majority vote in favor of your candidacy. Trump no longer has that. Over the weekend, as California, Oregon, Washington, and other western states moved closer to completing their counts, Trump's percentage of the popular vote fell below 50%, and his margin of victory looks to be much smaller than initially anticipated. In fact, all of the 59 presidential elections since the nation's founding, it appears that after all of the 2024 votes are counted, only 5 popular vote winners will have prevailed by a smaller percentage margin than Trump. George W. Bush, Trump in his first election, George W. Bush, I think both elections, none of them won the popular vote. They won the Electoral College. Like the fact that a Republican president won the popular vote is fucking amazing. Never thought I would see that again in my entire life. Never. Trump's popular vote advantage has declined steadily since election night. As of Monday afternoon, Trump was at 49.94%, while Harris was at 48.26%, according to authoritative Cook political reports tracking of results from official sources in states across the country. And we can expect that the Republicans' total will only continue to tick downward as heavily Democratic states on the Western coast finalize their vote tallies. And I do believe it ended up being Trump at 49.96, and Kamala Harris actually ended up ticking down under 48. She was at like 47.7 or 47.8 something. I think what ended up being the final tabulation when all was said and done. I'd have to look that up. You can fact check my numbers. It's fine. I'm pretty sure that's what I had seen on Associated Press, though. Anyway, Trump's still ahead of Harris in the popular vote. He also maintains a lead in the decisive, though absurdly anti-democratic Electoral College. The Electoral College was developed by the Founding Fathers to ensure that democracy wasn't what we did, that we had a republic, not a democracy. Anti-democratic is actually pro-constitutional. Slightly less than Barack Obama's in 2012 and slightly more than Joe Biden's in 2020. Based on a pattern of wins in battleground states. So the failure to win a majority won't cost Trump the presidency, but he's lost his ability to suggest that he trounced the Democrat. In fact, she's now trailing him by just 1.68% of the vote. But you do understand, like, no, they don't. They don't understand the moment and the monumentous what it means for a Republican to win the popular vote. Like they're completely out of touch with reality. I'm not going to read the rest of this because it's just more of the same stuff. It talks about other candidates who had similar vote counts and other numbers historically and stuff. The long and short of both of these articles is they completely missed the fucking point. They're so bogged down in, oh, well, look at he only won 49.94%, not 50%. So that's not a majority. He won the popular vote. That's the impressive thing. He didn't win in a landslide or secure a mandate. All 7 swing states went his direction. Literally every voting demographic in the country, except for boomer white women, shifted to the right. Every fucking state shifted to the right. Huge gains in California, New Jersey, New York City, massive Democrat strongholds. Even in Illinois, even in Chicago, there was a big move to the right. That is a mandate. That is a landslide. Whether you think it is or not, that is damning of your party, and it's damning of everything that you have stood for. It's damning of your agenda. It's damning of your candidate. It says that you have done something wrong, and people are moving away from you. If you don't take the lessons from that, you deserve to be buried underneath the fucking White House and never thought of again. Like, the entire party, if you cannot grasp that you fucked up and that this absolutely was a mandate, this absolutely was a landslide, RIP, bitch. You deserve it. That'll do it for today. Be sure to check out the daily stuff that I've been doing. As I said, I'll probably be doing the Must thing either. It'll either be today or tomorrow. And yeah, also I've been doing. I've been doing a lot of the daily, enjoying a lot of the daily stuff that I do, covering a lot of different topics and stuff, trying to keep it, relatively short and fresh. So check all that stuff out on YouTube, Facebook, or on X. You can find me right there on X at jcamp1521. So check it out. That'll do it for today. I will be back next week. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do for next week. I've got several things on the back burner, but nothing's really sticking out to me right now. Is I just need to talk about this. We'll see. And who knows? I might schedule an interview or something. But have a good one. Later.
Before you go, make sure you check out our great sponsor, Agorist Acres. Now, agoristacres.com, you can find over 100 varieties of seeds. They've got vegetables, flowers, all kinds of stuff. They've got heritage brands, everything that you want to start any kind of garden that you need. It's free shipping on any order of $20 or more. They've got cool packaging, and most of the seeds come in a fancy glass vial, no paper envelopes. They accept US dollars and crypto and can easily take either at checkout. Now be sure to head over to agoristacres.com, and anything that you get, use the promo code FCT at checkout for 10% off your order. I say all the time that you need to be starting your own garden, you need to be growing your own food, you need to be getting off the grid and becoming less dependent on grocery stores and stuff like that. Agorist Acres is a great first start. They have got everything you need for whatever kind of garden you want. Great people, great product. Highly recommend. So go check them out.